If you've been reading the motoring press, you'll have noticed all these articles popping up with tips for how to live with your shiny new EV. Unlike a regular petrol car which just does what it says on the tin, EVs are difficult, petulant and demanding, like a toddler. So your needs as a driver must now take second place to the needs of the car, and you need to prepare for this. We didn't need lengthy articles with tips for living with your internal combustion engine car, because they just do it all without hassle. You buy a car, fill it with petrol as needed, service it annually, clean it when required. That's it. Even the last one is optional. The incredible convenience of internal combustion engine cars is thrown into stark contrast when you buy an EV. And as a result, we're seeing more and more articles desperately trying to educate drivers on how to deal with their car's many drawbacks and inconveniences. Like the article in today's video, all they do is highlight how inferior they are than regular cars, while spinning them as progress. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. Today's article from the New Zealand Automobile Association helpfully identifies some of the major inconveniences of EVs, adding to the burden of vehicle ownership. All of these tips are essentially just more hassles that you need to deal with if you buy an EV, as if we don't have enough to worry about in 2024. Top tips for new EV owners. Made the transition into EV ownership? Welcome to the silent revolution that's rocking New Zealand's roads. Blimey, give me strength. I recently took possession of an MG4 Essence and donned the eco-friendly cap like a badge of honour, but it's taken a bit of getting used to the new way of driving. Well, I sincerely hope that virtue signalling badge of honour is worth the inconvenience. Let's find out. Know your EV range, not just in kilometres. Range anxiety is old news with the arrival of longer range EVs. It absolutely isn't, by the way. But you still need to be smart about your vehicle's limits. Every EV has an estimated kilometre range that's more guideline than gospel. Yeah, it's actual fiction. Your actual range can change based on various factors. Driving style. Driving in a less halting style will help preserve energy. Load. The weight and wind resistance from additions like trailers and roof boxes will impact range. Weather. The more you use the heater and air conditioning, the less range you'll have, especially if you're clearing a fogged windscreen, which uses both. So monitor your habits and learn how your EV responds to real-world scenarios. All of these are things that most ICE car drivers would barely give a second thought to. Yes, they're a bit less fuel efficient if you drive them hard or with a trailer, but it's not make or break for your journey. And waste heat from ICE cars is helpfully recycled as cabin heating. And be prepared to brush off your mental arithmetic. I have started memorising a few basic sums to help me calculate my real-world range. I know my EV can run at 7 km per kilowatt hour and has a 64 kilowatt hour battery. Let's call it 60 for ease. So 7 times 60 equals 420 kilometers of range. But if the car's doing 5 kilometers per kilowatt hour, check the dashboard, then the range will be just 300 kilometers. Making these calculations on the fly is a useful way of checking your range. And be prepared for your range to plummet if you are driving highway speeds, which is the complete opposite of regular cars which barely sip fuel on the freeway. And if you don't have a smartphone, forget it, as you'll need a gazillion new apps to deal with your new EV. Plugging in and getting app savvy. Charging is the new refueling, and it's a novel routine. At home, I use the standard wall plug the dealer provided. For out in the wild, I bought myself a Type 2 to Type 2 cable from Smart EV Chargers to use at public chargers in supermarket and public car parks. I use the PlugShare app to see where available chargers are. When I need to charge away from home, I use the ChargeNet or Zero app, depending on who owns the charging station. And because I've preloaded my credit card details, I can plug in and start charging almost immediately. I also have the MG app to monitor battery levels, schedule charging, and control cabin temperature from my phone. Finding the apps that best suit your car can turn your EV experience from good to great. Or, more realistically, from shocking to barely acceptable. Don't even think about controlling your cabin temperature if you're tight on range, as that will drain the battery faster than a sinking Cybertruck. And then we come to the biggest inconvenience of the lot. Mastering the charge time tango. Charging times can vary, depending on the type of charger and the rate of recharging. My MG4 takes around 24 hours to charge from 0 to 100% with a standard 8 amp home charger. Out and about, depending on the capacity of the car and the charger I'm plugged into, it may take only 30 minutes to charge, if you're extremely lucky. You'll also need to strategize your stopovers. If you're someone who can't sit still, sync your charging breaks with a lunch stop, a stretch of the legs, or a mini Netflix binge. When it comes to charge points, many experienced EV drivers recommend not giving up on a difficult or out-of-order unit, but instead phoning the helpline printed on almost every charge point. Often they can be reset remotely, or if payment systems aren't working, they can offer free charging. Wow, so just watch Netflix while you're standing around doing nothing. How does that work with young kids in the back? Charging is the Achilles heel of EVs, always was and always will be. There is no getting around the charger power charge time relationship that makes owning an EV a constant worry. Again, the car is in charge, if you'll forgive the pun here, demanding that you sync your lunch breaks with its petty needs. Remind me again how this is supposed to be progress? And if that weren't enough, you have to adjust your driving to please your EV master. Recapture that energy. EVs are masters of regenerative braking. They reclaim energy whenever you lift your foot off the accelerator and channel it back into the battery. Ease off the throttle early, be consistent with your driving style, and let that regen do its magic. Not only will you conserve energy, but you'll also reduce wear and tear on your brakes. Staying light on the accelerator can also mean the difference between pulling over for an emergency charge and cruising confidently to your destination. Slow and steady will keep your battery happier for longer. Embrace the zen of eco mode. These are all reasonable points, I guess, for any car's efficiency, but with an EV's range, it's life or death. If you have a bit of spirited driving in a regular car, you know that you can just top up in 5 minutes and be on your way again. But in an EV, you're consigning yourself to a long, unscheduled stop at a charging station, which could completely ruin your day. All these tips articles do is highlight the ways in which EVs are less competent and less capable than regular cars. Rather than being tips for new EV owners, these articles should be read as a caution about how your life with an EV will be far more complicated than with a regular car. All I can say is this: you have been warned.